Hi and welcome to the latest SmartTalk webinar by Fathom. I'm Craig Eason. Before we start, I want to mention that this topic and that of our previous webinar on treating crews as an asset and not a cost will be covered in detail at next week's Fleet Transformation Conference in London on the 25th and 26th of October. And it is transformation of sustainability that this webinar will cover and hopefully offer some insight into how the shipping industry can respond to the pressures, the challenges that it is increasingly being put under. Shipping has hardly ever been under so much pressure from outside forces and for so long. The global economic pressures that have impacted shipping so severely for the last decade have been compounded by similar struggles in many other sectors. Many of these sectors have found a way to drive efficiency through increased transparency and increased use of digital solutions, pushing these pressures over the last few years onto the shipping and maritime sectors. Similarly, society has put increased pressure on all industry through a growing range of forces. These coalesced in 2015 with the creation of the UN Global Compact and the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals that came into effect at the start of last year. All of a sudden, sustainability, a word that had seemingly lost its meaning in 2007 when most companies focused more on survival, was back. Sustainable development, sustainable future, sustainable resources, sustainable shipping. But has it lacked teeth? It has, for many, a sense of something one may aspire to, but never sure of whether you're doing it right. The idea of businesses being green has been around for a long time, and sure, green shipping is one part of that sustainability definition. But even older is the notion of having a sustainable business, an idea or function that will work continually, even as society or the world changes. Societal developments in the last few years have changed the way we think, the way we respond to openness, ethical behavior, and transparency. This is rapidly becoming an age of new sustainability. Can responsible companies use sustainability in today's digital age to create a smart business advantage? Or will we rely on the regulators to create the bar under which we dare not go, but may not be high enough? We asked 3 experts to share their thoughts and answer questions to help us understand how shipping can, should, and will be driven to change under these pressures. Before I introduce them, I'll quickly mention that you can engage with the speakers and each other by using the chat function in the auditorium and by heading over to the networking area in our platform and look at the polls and discussions that you can start there. Now, our experts. Niels Bjorn Mortensen recently retired from AP MAersk, where he was head of regulatory affairs in the company's technology research department. Prior to that, he attended many IMO and other regulatory meetings through his work at BIMCO. He'll look at how shipping can change the way it reacts to social pressures, or whether it will be looking at more regulation. Poul Woodall is head of environment and sustainability at the Danish shipping and logistics firm DFDS. As a company that's involved in business-to-business freight transportation, as well as customer-facing ferry services, DFDS has perhaps a strong incentive to be aware of how serious society is taking this new age of sustainability, particularly in this connected digital age. First, we'll hear from Tom Holmer, the newly appointed General Manager of the Sustainable Shipping Initiative. The SSI was originally launched as a project under the Forum for the Future, an organisation which itself was launched in 1996 by Jonathan Porritt and leading environmentalists in the UK. SSI recently became a standalone charity and is driven by 12 of the most well-known organisations in the shipping industry, including the Class Society Lloyd's Register, the technology firm Wärtsilä, ABN AMRO, the bank, Cargill, Maersk, and Swire Group's China Navigation.
Thanks, Craig, for inviting me to speak for a few minutes on shipping and the new sustainable future. Last week we had a members' meeting in Singapore, and 2 of our members, who are ship owners, spoke to me independently about having to account for their environmental and social policies. Customers, mainly large retailers, are increasingly having to account for the way in which they impact on the environment themselves. And I've heard that inquiries and questionnaires about this have increased over the last 3 years. If this effort to ensure a sustainable future is increasing, it's good for shipping and good for the environment. The propeller on this slide was developed by SSI in collaboration with stakeholders across the shipping value chain in 2013. It shows 6 areas which are considered to be the most important relating to sustainability for the long-term health of the shipping industry, and which feature on the SSI roadmap. The roadmap is a document which takes each of these headings and extrapolates them forward to 2040, highlighting areas for change, regulation and other work to bring a successful and sustainable industry by 2040. Notice the word success. For some this equates to commercial success only, but for others this is a wider issue which relates to the future of shipping in a global context of sustainability and is seen as a necessity for future life, let alone commerce. People listening to this will recognise the narrative which has been present in shipping for many years. A number of companies at the top end of shipping offer good conditions to their seafarers, work ahead of the pack in ensuring that their ships are clean, invest in training and new technology even when the markets are bad, and then receive the same charter rates as owners who do not make efforts to improve conditions for their workers or their ships. The shipping industry has many layers of quality, and it's long been a tragedy that there are many ships competing for the same cargo with very different conditions and levels of investment. Shipping has been seen as a business-to-business provider of services and has remained invisible to the outside world. For the users of shipping to move goods from one part of the world to another, price has always been the determining factor. The establishment of rating schemes like RightShip or the Green Award for Shipping have helped to provide incentives for higher quality. At the top end of shipping you have magnificently run ships, and at the bottom something akin to slavery. The new sustainable future is being driven by consumer brands who want to be satisfied that their products are produced and transported in a way which does least harm to the environment and to the people involved in their transport. NGOs working with the environment and with the people in developing countries who make goods and transport them also push the pace for change. The dangers of climate change provide an impetus, and we all have come to realise that there is not much time to turn around the juggernaut. Why should sustainability always be seen as a cost? Within the SSI, we've benefited from members who are willing to invest in sustainability in order to look at the long-term benefits for the future of their company. As a membership group comprising NGOs, a bank, ship owners, charterers, classification societies, technology companies and a ratings agency, we have worked across the industry to look at problems facing different sectors and to see how they might be addressed on a long-term basis. These companies have made a substantial investment in sustainability, in new ships and technology, and also in the cradle-to-cradle circular economy for ships, from new build to recycling. Many have been responsible for making improvements to fuel consumption or moving to LNG, including development of high-tech coatings. The next move is the step change needed to alternative non-carbon fuels and complete decarbonisation of their ships. There's a long way to go, but there is good news. I was very encouraged to read the results of research done by Transport and Environment, which indicates that modern container ships are well ahead of the emissions guidelines of the IMO. Another encouragement is the development of the Yarra Birkeland, an electric autonomous ship which will reduce by tens of thousands the numbers of journeys needed for trucks in Norway. Our own members are working on the development of hydrogen as a fuel and wind power, and I wonder if it will really take as long as 2040 for these determined and responsible people to achieve decarbonisation. There are lots of other issues relating to sustainability of shipping, which again come back to an exploration of the options and how goals can be reached. So back to the propeller, looking at the 6 blades of sustainability, some of which we are further ahead in than others. Ocean governance calls for involvement of the shipping industry in the development of marine spatial plans and the place of merchant shipping in the blue economy in a way which does not cause harm to the oceans. What will this look like? Well, perhaps a well-coordinated governance system which enables formal participation of all maritime stakeholders with a view to the protection and sustainability of the oceans. This would aim to balance rights and responsibilities and would provide an effective enforcement mechanism to ensure a level playing field. The development of financial solutions is needed to assist alternative technologies through startups and to also incentivise those who benefit from improvements. This is an area where SSI has participated in providing a mechanism for sharing the costs of retrofitting in the save-as-you-sail model, and where, for example, a reduction in bunker costs can be shared among different investors. The question of quantifying the cost of environmental impact in financial terms may also help to make people realise that sustainability can save money in the long run. The issue of transparency and accountability driving improved performance in the shipping industry is going to make customers for shipping services differentiate between companies who are sustainable and those who are not. And this will be a huge driver for progress. The issue of people who are involved in the shipping industry is also of great importance and the subject of two of the aims. SSI has looked at maritime communities, at the lives of seafarers and continuous improvement of conditions on board ships, and incorporated milestones for reaching a sustainable level on these areas by 2040. This promises to be a time of significant change for seafarers and for maritime communities. And although estimates of how long it will be before autonomous ships are introduced, seafarers' lives, profession and qualifications are likely to change, and the industry will need to look at this area to see how change can be made as smooth as possible for the people affected. This concludes my part of this webinar. If it has sparked an interest, please visit our website and take a look at the SSI roadmap, and please make use of it for your own planning. We aim to push forward the debate on sustainability in shipping and welcome collaboration from all sides of the industry.
That was Tom Holmer from the Sustainable Shipping Initiative, and a reminder now that you can use the chat function, and we will try and answer your questions and your opinions during the discussion after we've heard from the opening thoughts of all the panelists. And now on to Niels Bjorn Mortensen, who recently retired from A.P. Møller-Maersk and has had more than a decade of experience looking at shipping and regulations.
My name is Niels Bjorn Mortensen, and I've been invited to provide my view on sustainable shipping. So what is sustainable shipping? For how long will business as usual, as we know it today, be sustainable? Can the energy efficiency improvements in themselves satisfy the ambition of the Paris Agreement? It will be recalled that the Paris Agreement calls for an end in the use of fossil fuels in order to keep the rise in global temperature below 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2100. So what is needed to be sustainable some 20, 30 years from now, appreciating that the ships we design today may well be sailing in 2040 or even in 2050. Turning to sustainable transportation, we ask the question, is it sustainable to transport containers with bottled drinking water halfway around the globe to places where clean water is not in short supply? Is it sustainable to bring foodstuff halfway around the globe to a place with cheaper workforce, process the foodstuff and bring it back home again? There appears to be a lot of Mickey Mouse transport going on today, only because transport is so dirt cheap. Even though the ship designers keep improving the fuel efficiency, will that bring us anywhere near the decarbonized world fleet? In order to get to the decarbonized world, we will need to not only think out of the box, but also to start implementing out-of-the-box concepts, utilizing elements such as wind, solar, hydrogen, and nuclear. There might be some good business cases, but I would suggest that this will only happen through regulations.
Thank you, Niels Bjorn. And before we move to Poul Woodall from DFDS, a quick reminder to use the chat function to ask your questions, and during the discussion at the end of the webinar, we'll try and answer your thoughts. And now Poul Woodall is Head of Environment and Sustainability at the Danish shipping and logistics firm DFDS. And he'll talk about, from his point of view, how a ferry and logistics company is moving forward in the age of sustainability.
I will talk to you about sustainability and digital. What's all this about in 2017? Just briefly about the DFDS group. We do shipping, we do logistics, and we do passengers. There's about 7,000 of us employed around Europe, and this is what we do day in and day out, 24/7. So what's sustainability to us? We've just redefined the group's purpose: to move for all to grow. And when you think a little bit about that, that really entails two important things. First of all, we have to make sure that we run a profitable organization. Without profits, we will not survive, we will not be sustainable. And without a decent cash flow, it will not be possible for us to influence the environment in which we work. And that's really the second step that we have to ensure that we comply with. So that's sustainability to us, financials and environment as one happy family. Now, where does digital then come into all this? Digital is really the word of 2017. Everybody is into it. A lot of resources are being spent, human and financial. Is this good or is this bad for sustainability? Well, that really depends on how you look at it. What are the reasons why people invest in hardware, in software, or indeed in people? Well, first of all, people invest because there's a legal obligation, there's a legal requirement. We see that extensively in shipping today. New legislation is influencing the way we do our business. So that's really number one. Number two is we have to make a bottom line. There has to be a return on our investment. So if we can justify the investment from a financial perspective, there's normally money in the budget for doing this. And then there is a third investment opportunity. I call it philanthropic. That is the money you spend where you don't expect a return. Money you spend because it's something you believe in, something that is good for you and society. Some people will call this branding, but branding normally has a financial return. True philanthropic investments do not. And that's an important aspect because this is really where I want to concentrate. This is where you find true environmental investments. We have in the recent years seen a lot of environmentally friendly ships being launched. Branding of this has been extensive, and it's as if the ships have really been made for the sole purpose of saving the environment. Of course, the truth is that that's not the case. The truth is that the legal requirements and the financial incentives of doing it actually results in something that is a bit more environmentally friendly than it was yesterday. To me, that's not an environmental investment. That is purely a combination of legal and financial requirements. How many of these ships that have been branded environmentally friendly have actually included features for which there is no legal requirement and for which there is no financial payback? My guess is very few, if any at all. And I think we're all guilty of this in the industry. We're kind of dressing ourselves up to be something that we perhaps not are. This is my take on true environmental investment. There is no financial return. The best KPI for a successive environmental investment, zero return. That is zero return to the company, but perhaps not zero return to society. The question is how many companies can actually afford to invest in society when it doesn't benefit the company itself. Not very few. If we look at companies, shipping companies, and their budgets for investment, how big is really the R&D budget? The budget you set aside to test out ideas that help society move forward, that ensures that society will be sustainable for the years to come. My guess is that very few shipping company actually has an R&D budget. And if it's there, is it really R&D, or is that really just a brand that we put on it for something that perhaps is different? I challenge the industry that this is something we need to look at. We need to be better at wanting to spend money on something where we perhaps are not getting a return. So where does this place digital? Well, basically, the digital spend we see today all goes into one of the two investment opportunities. It goes into the bottom line. It's a question of how we increase the revenue, operate better, know our cost down to the finest detail, and find ways of optimizing the spend that we do on the ships. There's really very little money going into environmental opportunities today. Something that will need to change, because the risk is that if we as an industry do not step up to the plate and start investing in the future, somebody will tell us what to do. And we know very well that once we are told what to do, it's most likely, first of all, something we do not like to do. And secondly, experience shows that is probably not the most optimal solutions. We have seen that with a lot of environmental legislation coming our way in the past years. Politicians decide based on headlines, not based on details. And this is where we as an industry, we have to play our part so we get this right. We can't leave it to the outside world to decide which way our industry is going. So my question really is to you out there, can't we do this just a little bit better?